thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. That is right. It is. Oh, man, you guys. It is Friday, you guys. We have finally made it. It is Friday, May 24th, and today is National Yucatan Shrimp Day, National Wyoming Day, and it's also Brothers Day, as well as Aviation Maintenance Technician Day, National Escargot Day, and this is for you, Stone Slade. It's also National Scavenger Hunt Day.
Okay,
yes. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. But kicking it off today, we have a fill-in today. We have Mr. Stone Slade that's going to be kicking it off today. He's coming out of the great red state of Texas out there in the city of Austin, probably the bluest place in all of Texas. That's right. It is none other than the Delta 8 specialist himself, Mr. Stone Slade.
Oh, Jason Beck, I'm going to smack you with my Delta 8, buddy.
Yeah.
Stay away from the Delta 8, folks. Let's talk Texas, actually, this great purple state of Texas. My story involves somebody from the state, kind of, by way of Canada. You know, it never ceases to amaze me the lengths that some politicians will go to twist reality to fit their narratives. Take the Zodiac Killer, a.k.a. Senator Ted Cruz, for instance. Recently, at a Senate committee subcommittee hearing, Cruz took the opportunity to criticize the Biden administration's move to reschedule cannabis from Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 substance under the Controlled Substances Act. Now, old Canadian Texan Ted isn't criticizing Biden for not descheduling cannabis because he believes it should remain as a Schedule 1 drug with the worst of the worst. Now, Cancun Cruz claimed that rescheduling cannabis would lead to more vehicle accidents and fatalities, citing a 2022 study showing a 6.5% increase in injury crash rates and a 2.3% increase in fatal crash rates associated with the legalization of adult use cannabis from 2009 to 2019. He's taking the typical fear-based tactics route and suggesting that rather than making our roads safer, that the evil Biden administration's actions would endanger families across America. Kind of like needing that border wall to protect Americans, but hey, let's not improve the construction just yet because God forbid Biden get credit for it. But here's the thing. Lion Ted, in his typical fashion, is being remarkably selective with his facts. For one, there are studies with findings that contradict his narrative. Take a 2023 report from the Canadian Institute of Actuaries and the Casualty Actuary Society. Using machine learning to analyze data from Canada and U.S. from 2016 to 2019, the researchers found that while being high on cannabis does affect driving behavior, it might not be all bad. In fact, some cannabis users drove more cautiously when high, using slower speeds and maintaining longer following distances. Imagine that, a more relaxed approach to driving rather than the aggressive tendencies often seen with alcohol. And let's not overlook the sheer hypocrisy in Felito's stance. Here's a man who loudly opposes any reduction in alcohol consumption guidelines. Just last year, during an interview with Newsmax, Cruz chugged a beer on camera, defying federal health officials' suggestion to limit alcohol intakes to 2 drinks per week. He said, if they want us to drink 2 beers a week, frankly, they can kiss my ass. Now, this from a man who's up in arms about the supposed dangers of cannabis, which, by the way, hasn't caused any documented fatalities from driving stoned. Ted Schmooze's criticism didn't stop there. He lambasted liberals for wanting to control every damn aspect of your life, conveniently ignoring his party's efforts to restrict women's health care rights by overturning Roe v. Wade. It's a classic case of calling the kettle black. The same man who rails against government overreach is all too happy to impose restrictions when it suits his political agenda. Now, meanwhile, Cruz expressed concern that rescheduling cannabis without clear guidelines for testing it to its use could create confusion in safety-sensitive industries like trucking. Now, while it's fair to consider that the implications for workplace safety, it's worth noting that Cruz's own stance on state rights I lost my place. God damn it. State rights and cannabis regulation has been inconsistent. Sorry about that, y'all. Back in 2018, he said, I think it ought to be up to the states, allowing places like Colorado and Texas to decide their own policies, yet he can't seem to resist taking shots at federal moves to ease cannabis restrictions. Now, the Biden administration, on the other hand, has based its rescheduling decision on science and evidence, aiming to ease research restrictions around cannabis, particularly for treating chronic illnesses and pain. The proposed rescheduling is a step towards acknowledging the medicinal benefits of cannabis, even if it doesn't fully legalize it. Now, one last point to ponder. Two-Faced Ted's rhetoric about protecting families on the road is hard to take seriously when he's so openly supportive of alcohol, which is responsible for over 13,000 deaths annually due to drunk driving, yet there's no call from him for stricter alcohol regulations. So there you have it. Senator Turd Cruz, ever the hypocrite, selectively cites data to stroke fear about cannabis while turning a blind eye to the proven dangers of alcohol and his own party's overreach. It's a masterclass in political doublespeak, if you ask me. I'm Stone Slade, reporting for the High at 9 News.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Poor Teddy. Poor Teddy Cruz.
Poor Teddy.
Poor Teddy Cruz.
What do you got to say about Ted? Come on.
I mean, I like Ted. I like Ted overall. He is a constitutionalist, and that is really where he falls at. I do have him on video stating that he, although he wouldn't vote for it, that if the people did vote for it, that he would 100% respect their wishes. So so from that, I totally respect him. Like, his position is he's not a fan of cannabis or whatnot, and ultimately we'll just keep working on him and getting him to evolve on the issue.
Is this one of those things where?
Go ahead, Rachelle.
Is he just getting like a bunch of lobbyist money from some other interested anti-cannabis group, maybe big alcohol, big pharma, something like that, where he's just he's being forced to make these comments because they're cutting him a check, or what's up with that?
I don't think he's being forced to make these comments. Ted likes to definitely be in the limelight and have his voice heard in regards, especially on controversial issues that the federal government deals with. So.
Do you think his stance would be different if the Trump administration had done what the Biden administration does? Don't you think he'd probably be singing a different tune right now?
No.
No?
No.
Even like the border wall?
Yeah, maybe he's...
Oh my God, they're coming across the border. Let's build this wall. Oh wait, not if Biden wants it. Let's wait until we see what happens after the election.
Ted Cruz has stayed consistent that we need a wall throughout all of this.
He actually voted down the bill that the Republicans put forward when Trump told them to. They're just remaining politically facile and doing, whatever wind blows them to do instead of actually delineating and defining first principles and then acting from.
Yeah, and shout out to Isaac Cruz out in the chat. He says, I don't support Ted on this issue. I like Ted too, but isn't right on everything. And I totally agree with that statement. He's not right about everything, but he is a constitutionalist. Which you can't say about a lot of these politicians, because they just want to just rip up the Constitution and make it go away.
I think Jason really does have the best weed in the world, you guys, because he lives in a hallucinatory reality.
You're
and I'd like you to send me at least an ounce, please, Jason.
No problem, bro. No problem.
I'll pay you $400 for an ounce of that shit, bro. I too want to think Ted Cruz is a solid, principled individual.
You can't short me,
like
Matthew.
that.
You can't short me. It's $420 for the 420.
I'm going to give you $500, Jay. Let's go.
Right, there we go.
You smoke this weed and you think Trump is a genius? Let's fucking go.
Trump's the greatest president America's ever had.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying, dude. That weed has got to be just terrific. Let's go.
What do you think about this, Dr. T? Mr. Ted Cruz?
I think the religious right groups have asked him to do this.
That's
for
fair.
some reason, they continue to battle cannabis, and it's a losing battle.
You know, I always find it interesting with the religious groups battling cannabis because it's like all the evangelicals, they only live in the New Testament. And it's like the Old Testament is clearly states that all seed-bearing plants are of this earth and to be used. And it's like they totally disavow the Old Testament and only try to just focus on the New Testament by saying obey the laws of the land.
Well, they have selective facts that they choose, so it doesn't make sense ever.
I just don't understand how God created a plant and then they're hating on the plant. They're hating on one of God's creations, and I just don't. I just find that hypocritical.
Yes, that's a good word for that.
Wait, are you saying that religion isn't based on a coherent logical system?
I don't know what you're saying, Mathieu St. Germain. I think you've ate too many caps today already.
Words.
See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? All right, fair enough. Love me some Ted Cruz, though, man. He is a strict constitutionalist. I'm a fan. Any last words on this, Stone Slade?
I got nothing. Thanks, though. I enjoyed doing it. Ted Cruz, you do you.
Hey, thank you. Yes, Ted Cruz. Shout out the man with a plan, the senator of Texas, the great red state of Texas. That's right. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
Oh, man, that was weird. Hey, you America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
All right, and we are back, you guys. We back, Adam? We're back. All right. I'm rolling into my story now, you guys. All right, Stone, do you want to do any introductions today since you're filling in for Rico?
Hey, coming up next is the man with the plan, our head honcho. Forgot all the names they call you, but Jason Beck, I love you, dog. You're real, you're a Republican, and I'm going to let you pass for that. But let's give it up for the man, the one and the only, Jason Beck.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Stone Slade. Man, I'll tell you what, New York. And I do want to thank our good friend, Carrie Accardi with 420 Media for sending me this story yesterday. I think you guys are going to love this one because a gentleman says, I'm stuck, you guys. That's right. A cannabis shop owner is fined $15.2 million for illegal sales. The owner of a chain of unlicensed cannabis shops in the Rochester Finger Lakes region and central New York now faces a $15.2 million fine. David Tully, who owned cannabis shops in Wayne, Monroe, Seneca, Cayuga, and Oswego counties under the names I'm Stuck and Weed Warehouse, sold cannabis illegally and to underage customers, ignoring the state's request to stop operating, according to the Attorney General, Letitia James. The state shut down 7 of Tully's shops last summer in Auburn, Armelius, Lyons, Ontario, Macedon, Pulaski, and Williamson. Tully's fine includes $7 million for illegal profits and $8.2 million in penalties for operating without a license and ignoring notices from the State Office of Cannabis Management. In a quote, "These illegal and unlicensed stores are budding up throughout the state and are hurting our communities," James said in a statement. Today, David Tully is paying the $15 million price for his repeated illegal activity LLC and will be permanently banned from the cannabis industry in New York. This punishment should serve as a clear warning for all unlicensed cannabis stores in the state. We will enforce the law and shut down your operations. In previous interviews with Tully, he denied selling cannabis. Instead, he claimed I'm Stuck was a marketing and consulting firm that gifted cannabis supplies. Investigators said their undercover surveillance found underage customers buying cannabis, and Tully denied the allegation. When this 13 Wham reached out to Tully, the New York Attorney General's office and the Office of Cannabis Management, but none have called back or replied since. But man, oh man, oh man, Letitia James, she's not just going after Trump, she's also going after this guy, David Tully in New York, with $15.2 million fine. I mean, just that's a ridiculous, erroneous fine for a head shop owner. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. Any thoughts? Any thoughts, you guys, about this big bust? Letitia James, $15.2 million in sales, or $15.2 million in fines for this guy?
Well, it's a little excessive, but I guess I mean, what are they gonna do? No, they don't have a way to stop these guys from doing. I don't know.
He must be related to Trump for them giving him this type of fine in New York.
Yeah, they want to make an example.
Yeah, right. Like this is just crazy to me. $15.2 million. I mean, it is. You can't take these jurisdictions seriously when they do these types of things. You can't take them seriously, in my opinion.
Well, it sounds like he's operating more than one store. He's not just a head shop owner. It sounds like he's got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But maybe they can use the money and open up more legal stores more quickly. That's
Dr. T, you really think they're going to get this $15.2 million out of this guy?
No.
Not a chance. Definitely not. I'm not buying that for a second, that they're going to get $15.2 million out of this guy.
But the problem is they don't have enough legal stores open. They won't fix the problem until they get that to happen, right?
I don't see how they ever fix the problem, but I just don't see how real people with real businesses can take New York government seriously when they issue out these types of fines. If it was something more moderate, like a couple 100,000 or even like 100,000 per location or something like that, that could be like a manageable bill, I would have more respect. But when they just throw these crazy numbers out there, it's just like all of a sudden, all that I just automatically tune out, and all I hear is the Trump trial going on in regards with the closure of illegal stores.
I mean, I feel like they're just trying to make an example of this guy because there's just so much criticism going on with the OCM there and leadership in New York in general. Mm-hmm. But they've given out $25 million in fines to these illicit operators, and I think they've collected like $25,000 total thus far.
Yeah,
they might be writing fines, but they're not collecting that cash.
They're definitely not. Exactly. All they're doing is hurting people's credit and whatnot. It's just it's not a win. It's not a win. It's not going to help the economy. It's not going to help people with jobs or anything else like that.
Well, I mean, that's the shitty thing, is it's stupid because we shouldn't be doing this with this plant anyway. So
Thank you.
It's all ridiculous. Everybody's out of line. You're out of line. They're out of line. Everybody's out of line.
Yep, exactly. You get a fine, and you get a fine, and you get a fine is basically what this sounds like to me. Yeah. You know, and. Yeah. And I wonder, does anyone have any idea what they're basing the $15.2 million on? Because I can't figure out how they came up with this number. It feels to me like they just all of a sudden just like drew it on a piece of paper and this number looks good here.
Yeah, I think like Rachelle said, it's like, let's make an example, just throw this freaking huge number at them and let's see if that deters people.
But that's the thing is like if people aren't paying the fines, is that really making an example, or isn't that just making a joke of the whole system at large because no one's taking it seriously?
Well, sometimes they'll just give out punitive fines to close a business, you know?
Yeah,
especially if they think there's kind of like unprosecutable.
You close that down, you set up a new one, bro. It's not that difficult.
Now you're trying to accuse government of behaving intelligently. That's not what I was saying at all. I was just saying sometimes they'll offer these punitive fines when they think there might be some sort of criminal or other shady behavior that they can't really prove. The DA can't prove it, and so they'll work with the prosecution, the judge, to just levy a fine that's unpayable, so the business goes out of business.
Yeah,
to sell.
And I find it interesting that the government is saying that he sold stuff to minors. He's adamantly admitting that he didn't sell anything to minors. I do find that troubling if he was selling it to minors, personally.
Definitely.
Well, he's doing something illegal, from the get-go.
Yeah, but Dr. T, we've all been doing stuff that's illegal forever, and that's how we even got here in the first place. So can you really say that as a clapback?
Yeah, because that's what we're trying to do, legalize cannabis, and that's what we're doing. So if they're still selling it illegally, sorry.
Oh, interesting perspective there, Dr. T. Interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Very
Trap always wins.
The trap is definitely going to win. The trap is not losing this one, that's for sure. And the trap definitely ain't paying that $15.2 million fine.
No.
No. What are your thoughts, Matthew?
I agree. I agree with Rachelle.
Yeah?
Freedom market continues to thrive because it's free and because people care about quality, smaller scale for them.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Mark, you have any thoughts on this? No? I see a head shake.
No, not really. I mean, I think it's just New York is such a fucking shit show. It's just,
And they just keep on making it worse, Dr. Mark. Yesterday
but this guy's not going to pay this fine. It's just a bunch of lip service coming out of Albany.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the trap is thriving in Manhattan. Probably like 3,000 stores on that island alone.
Right?
Selling all kinds of weed.
Oh boy.
It's probably boof mids from Midwest hemp farms.
Hey, now you watch yourself.
Or Omaha.
On that Midwest hemp.
Oklahoma.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Except for where Rachel's from.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And on that, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right on into Dr. Gene Talleyrand. He's the founder of the CESC and the creator of Medican, where if you're in California, you should definitely be getting your medical cannabis recommendations to help avoid all of those erroneous taxes, just like this David Tully is probably going to do by not paying his fine. That's right. It is none other than Dr. Gene Talleyrand.
Happy fun. They still tax here, but less. That's true.
Right?
So my headline today is an opinion article from Newsweek by Howard Kessler. Easier access to pot may revolutionize healthcare for seniors. Almost 80,000 Americans will turn 65 this week. That's not just a lot, it's record-breaking. Over the next 4 years, more people will turn 65 annually than ever before, representing the biggest surge in retirement age Americans in history. While 4.1 million Americans enter their golden years by the end of 2027, we will see a massive jump in demand for advanced medical care and enrollments in Medicare. To suggest that this may get messy is an understatement. We need to radically rethink the senior healthcare landscape, and we need to do it now. The DEA and the Biden administration announcement last week crystallizes the opportunity sooner than later. Almost all the commentary around the announcement focused on Biden securing the youth vote for the elections. What about the over 65-year vote? By scheduling marijuana, we can incorporate medical cannabis into the comprehensive care of older Americans. Seniors are already the fastest growing group of cannabis users in the United States. Many are already using cannabis as a transformative solution for chronic pain, anxiety, insomnia, depression, nausea, from chemotherapy and neurodegenerative disorders like dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. Amidst rising healthcare costs, the Medicare population is facing cuts in health benefits. We need a fundamental overhaul of the senior healthcare landscape. Seniors have the highest healthcare costs and rates of hospitalizations, and nearly 1/3 take 5 or more pharmaceuticals every day. In a study conducted at a senior living facility in Florida, where medical cannabis was administered, more than 80% showed a positive impact, and 3/4 said that cannabis was more cost-effective than prescription drugs. In states where cannabis is legal, doctors prescribe an average of 1,826 fewer painkillers per year, which would result in a cost savings of up to $500 million per year. The disruptive potential of medical cannabis can't be understated. Yet, the path to reach the potential is peppered with hurdles. Integrating medical cannabis into senior healthcare programs requires establishing a demonstration program in a state that allows medical cannabis. The demonstration could implement a systematic approach and gather real-world data over the next several months on the diagnosis, usage pattern, dosing protocols, and efficacy of medical cannabis among their senior demographic. This demonstration is the seed that will sprout potential not only to disrupt the current medical cannabis system, but revolutionize the senior healthcare landscape. But the clock is ticking, and the need for healthcare transformation is now. And soaring costs and a growing desire to shift away from traditional pharmaceuticals, medical cannabis is poised to usher in that transformation. So what do you think? Is this why Schedule 3 has folks nervous? Or do you think Schedule 3 is the start of a revolution to put medical cannabis in Medicare? This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News.
Well, Dr. T, I think Schedule 3 is basically just like you said, it's going to give the pharmaceutical industry the edge on cannabis, and it's going to leave everybody that's been in cannabis far, far, far in the dust.
I have to say the pharmaceutical industry has had the edge on cannabis for almost 50 years. They can study it. Mm-hmm. But they just choose to study it at one single agent at a time.
Well, that's how they operate, though, because they only operate in single compounds, right?
Yeah. But they've lost their edge because, meanwhile, we're now studying the plant, and they haven't been able to shift to that paradigm yet. So,
well, it's like trying to fit a round peg in a square hole with that, though, Dr. T. It's like they don't do that. They never have. So expecting them to advance themselves into that, I think is just well wishes.
Right. But what I think the point of the article is that should the cannabis industry pivot toward focusing on grandma and getting grandma some standardized cannabis-based products and having the government, Medicare, pay for these products. I mean, this could solve a lot of dispensary.
I don't think Medicare is ever going to pay for products, even on a Schedule 3 status. Because in order for Medicare to pay for that, that would mean that a company would be putting one of their products through a whole FDA trial to make it FDA approved for over-the-counter sales. And I don't see any cannabis companies that are going to have the money to do that, nor the 5, 10, 15 years that it takes to get that accomplished.
We would have to convince the FDA that cannabis has a separate track.
You're not going to convince them of that.
Well, at some point, we just have to have an alternate clinical track for FDA trials that includes full spectrum, whole plant, whole fungi ingredients, as well as.
But that goes against their whole five character guidelines for how
right. But that's why it would be
drugs.
That's why it would be a new clinical path, because it would have to actually establish new guidelines, and there would have to be a new path that is not like the current.
You guys are
discrete molecule path, and it is doable. What it would take would be lobbying money.
If you think you're going to
millions of dollars to pay off our government representatives, basically de facto bribe them to get.
If you think that you guys are going to teach the federal government, which I would consider the old dog in this analogy, a new trick, I think you guys are barking up the wrong tree.
Well, so consider the biosimilars. Consider the antibodies that we're giving in the 1980s. There was no track for the antibodies. They don't fit in the normal small molecule track. Antibodies are large protein molecules with multiple variable characteristics. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Similar to Cannabis Botanical, and we were able to teach the FDA. We, meaning the scientists, were able to teach the FDA how to handle antibodies, and now you see them advertised everywhere, and they've got their own special tract for biosimilars. So it's been done before. It was done with pharma money, right? But it was done before.
Interesting. But what year?
I think they have to have a dog in the fight, right? So by putting cannabis into Schedule 3 and making them basically the legal purveyors and producers and dispensers of cannabis, now they have a dog in the fight. Now they can use their lobbying dollars to do exactly what Jean said, which is create an alternate pathway. Like the antibody example is a great example about how the FDA has to be able to evolve their thinking beyond single monomolecular medicine, which is, okay, there's a tablet of aspirin, right? It's aspirin and starch, just aspirin, right? Well, what we know from botanicals, if the cannabis plant teaches us anything, it teaches us this entourage or ensemble effect, which is greater than the activity of the single ingredient. So I think, Jean, you're absolutely spot on correct. They can do this, but I think that they need a commercial dog in the fight. So maybe that's what Big Pharma will do when this thing gets put into Schedule 3.
Most likely pharmaceutical companies won't try to push for it because, and the antibody track is actually a great imperative. The reason they push for the antibodies is because they're monoclonal antibodies. They're antibodies that they've actually used CRISPR and other technologies to alter and thereby able to win a patent on them. So then they can invest the $40 to $50 million in that antibody treatment, give it a specific name, and funnel all the profits. I'm seeing that with my son with Ocrevus, Simpta, and all these drugs which are monoclonal antibodies. And so we're going to have to continue as a polity, as a community, find ways to lobby our government in order to get these therapies that are not patentable pushed forward on a quicker manner. I think.
So be able to patent a multi-agent product. It's just what's the magic formula and what's the level of variability in it. So they're right around the corner. We're definitely in a race for sure.
Dr.
I know you can patent a cannabis plant. I think if it's less than 1% of the seeds come out with any variants. If you basically have to get like 15 plus generations in, and you can get them to a point where they replicate, and that's how they do it with other patented agricultural seeds. So I guess it is possible.
Dr. T, what year did they legalize those or allow for all of those antibody treatments?
Let's see. Monoclonal antibodies was just coming out. The idea was just coming out in the late 80s. So that's when science was.
Wasn't this in part done because these antibodies were helping people who were suffering from HIV and AIDS?
No, it was just we're just learning about antibodies and how they were these amazing proteins that had this ability to attach to things, and we could change what it attached to, and then had also a natural ability to attach to the cells. So, we were just learning that in the 1980s. It was really, discovering empirical science.
Okay.
And then we realized, wow, we can attach things to those antibodies, and they can sort of be like a seek and destroy missile, find the bad cells, and destroy them. And so that's where we got the cancer chemotherapy and everything else came from that.
Got it. Thank you all so much for this. This was fantastic. We're going to go to a commercial, and we are going to be right back. The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated. All right, stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you hit that like button. I know we'll appreciate it, you'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed to this channel already, and all of the articles that we cover on today's show you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla, and if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
Hi, I'm Smoky Vanilla. I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, and I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on individuals that are in sport with chronic pain or injury. I love to intuitively create and customize a session based on the individual that I'm working with. We'll go over a few postural assessments, work together to create a wellness journey based on the health history, past injuries, or anything still affecting you today. And we'll get you back on your feet right away with less pain.
We're about to stretch, and then we're gonna smoke, because we're gonna get on our stretch and smoke. If you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to come on down and get a stretch and smoke with none other than Smoky Vanilla. All right, Stone.
Oh, yeah. Coming up next, Professor Mark Scialdone, a PhD chemist with 30 years of experience in the scientific arena. Not only is he a recognized expert in natural product chemistry, essential oil extraction, and synthesis, but he's also been a dedicated deadhead for 50 years. Dr. Mark Scialdone is known for inventing a novel cannabinoid, HHCA, broadcasting from the picturesque shores of Lake Champion and Colster, Vermont, and the home of Better Kim Consulting. We present Dr. Mark Scialdone.
Look at that. Nice intro.
Thank you, Stone.
You got it.
Thank you, Stone. Yeah, that's great. Great intro. Happy Friday, everybody. Actually, it's the shores of Lake Champlain, but we want who's counting. Actually, we're at St. Michael's College here in Colchester, Vermont, where I call home. Working in the lab on a Friday afternoon. Could think of no better place to be to share this story with you. My story today is entitled "The Farm Bill Amendment Would Ban All Hemp-Derived THC, closing the so-called THCA loophole." So this comes out of MJ Biz Daily by Chris Roberts, published yesterday. And it starts, will Congress protect the nationwide market for hemp-derived cannabinoids through the next U.S. Farm Bill, or will state-regulated marijuana industry succeed in squashing the unwelcome competitor? Under one proposed amendment filed Wednesday ahead of a key hearing which happened yesterday, Thursday, all ingestible hemp products with any level of THC would be federally banned, warned the U.S. Roundtable, a Washington, D.C.-based lobbying group. A $1.5 trillion farm bill. Wow, that's a lot of money. $1 trillion. $1.5 trillion farm bill, already nearly 9 months overdue, is scheduled for a markup hearing in the House Committee on Agriculture on Thursday. That was yesterday. So among many points of contention in the sprawling bill, which Congress normally updates every 5 years, is what to do with the burgeoning domestic hemp derived cannabinoid markets, estimated to be as much as $28 billion. Well, I've heard numbers exceeding $50 billion, but okay, $28 billion, still a lot of money. Closing the THCA loophole. Actually, the way they spelled it was TCHA, so I'm sure they mean THCA. They just got their alphabet soup wrong. So an initial draft of the Farm Bill published last week by Pennsylvania Republican Senator or Republican Congressman Glenn G.T. Thomas, the Ag Committee chairman, proposed to redefine hemp under federal law to include hemp grown for cannabinoid extraction. On Wednesday, U.S. Representative Mary Miller, an Illinois Republican, filed a proposed amendment, the so-called Mary Miller Amendment, to the text that would exclude products with any detectable amounts of THC, as well as cannabinoids synthesized or manufactured outside the plant. So this is basically an amendment that they're putting into the Farm Bill that's going to end the conversion of CBD or other things into psychoactive cannabinoids. That language would render most products such as Delta-8 or other novel containing cannabinoids such as HHC illegal under federal law. Miller's amendment would redefine hemp under the federal law to mean cannabis plants with 0.3% or less THC, including tetrahydrocannabinolic acid, or THCA, the biosynthetic precursor to THC that becomes intoxicating when heated. I am offering an amendment to close the loophole that legalized intoxicating hemp products like Delta-8, which is being marketed to teenagers and children, Miller said in a message posted to social media site X. These drug-infused products are often sold in colorful packaging next to candy and snacks, which parents strongly oppose. Thursday Farm Bill hearing. So many competing interests are lobbying the U.S. House Committee on Agriculture to drastically revise the $1.5 trillion, 940-page Farm Bill. And most of them have nothing to do with hemp. Most of those pages, they're saying. Democrats are furious that Thomas proposed a cut of $30 billion from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Plan, or what's called SNAP, formerly known as the Food Stamp Program. Meanwhile, Thomas's far-right colleagues are bristling at his proposal to continue massive subsidies for agribusiness interests. Those are like the corn and the soybean and the wheat growers. A lot of those big industrial ag farms get a lot of money from the government in the form of subsidies. So somewhere in the middle, lobbyists for the marijuana and hemp industries are trying to grab lawmakers' attention long enough to address intoxicating cannabinoids derived from hemp, a nationwide market created by the 2018 Farm Bill. What they want is either preservation of the status quo, which allows hemp-derived products to be marketed and sold pursuant to state regulations, or a de facto admission from Congress that legalizing a nationwide market for hemp-derived THC was a mistake, and that hemp ought to be regulated like marijuana. So marijuana versus hemp in a survival struggle. For those businesses already engaged in the hemp industry, the draft of the Farm Bill that Thompson released last week is near ideal. It leaves the federal definition of hemp while adding language that addresses hemp the same way as it did in the previous Farm Bill. And it doesn't say whether it's grown for extraction or not. Representative Miller's amendment filed Wednesday would turn the fortunes of hemp producers sharply. The amendment states that hemp does not include hemp-derived products containing cannabinoids that are not capable of naturally being produced in the plant Cannabis sativa, or were synthesized or manufactured outside the plant, or have similar effects or marketed to have similar effects in humans or animals as does Delta-9 THC. In a statement about the Farm Bill amendment, U.S. Roundtable General Counsel Jonathan Miller, again another Miller, interesting, urged its defeat by the House lawmakers in Thursday's markup meeting. By federally banning all hemp products with any quantifiable level of THC, the Mary Miller Amendment would result in federal prohibition of 90 and 95% of all hemp products that are on the market today, even the ones with large popularity. with non-intoxicating products too, the CBD products that contain trace amounts of intoxicating cannabinoids such as THC. So the redefinition of hemp to include the calculation of THCA would wreak havoc in the fiber and grain markets, killing tens of thousands of agricultural retail jobs and denying access to popular products that Americans can count on for health and wellness. At least one lobbying group is likely to be pleased with Representative Miller's proposed amendment, and it represents the regulated marijuana industry. So last month, the U.S. Cannabis Council, members of which include multi-state operators in the licensed marijuana operations currently undergoing, circulated a letter amongst lawmakers to exclude in the new Farm Bill any hemp-derived product with detectable amounts of total THC or any other intoxicant that can be derived from hemp, including other forms of THC or synthetic compounds like HHC. In a statement, the U.S. Cannabis Council spokesperson Josh Glassstetter said excluding intoxicating hemp products from the Farm Bill definition of hemp would mean lawmakers can regulate them the same as cannabis products at the state level, where many lawmakers have already passed bans or regulations. Closing the perceived loophole in the Farm Bill would create parity and facilitate state-level regulation, followed by eventual federal legalization of all THC products, the USCC statement reads in part. The Democratic Party-controlled Senate has yet to release a full text of the proposed bill. So the synthetic THC question, somewhere between the preservation and prohibition, is the position taken by the American Trade Council for Hemp and Cannabis. It's their position that hemp manufacturers have gone too far in creating THC alternatives such as Delta-8 THC, which naturally exists in the plant at low levels. No, it doesn't. But is generally derived from CBD in a chemical process. We don't think Congress legalized synthetic THC in the Farm Bill, and we don't think Congress closed the doors on states getting involved, said Chris Lindsay, who lobbies for Congress on behalf of the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp. But we definitely think there's nothing but confusion about these things. So passing the Farm Bill will be a tall order. It remains to be seen if an open question whether a divided Congress that we have now will reach a major party controlling one chamber or the other by a small margin will be able to pass any Farm Bill in an election year. The 2018 Farm Bill, which expired in September of 2023, with funding provisions extended as Congress endured leadership battles, sidelined lawmaking for now. It's possible that vicious partisan squabbling will thwart the efforts of passing the bill, something that could happen without hemp or marijuana even entering into the conversation, punting the Farm Bill to the next Congress seated after the presidential election. Well, the Farm Bill is on life support now, as it is. Hemp Roundtable's Miller noted on Thursday, prior to the Miller Amendment, which was introduced in that session yesterday. So there are Democrats opposed on the House side and a good chunk of the Freedom Caucus that don't like it either. It's going to be a tall order to get the Farm Bill passed this year. And that's the story. Well, I'm just going to remind everybody that the regulation over the plant as dictated by the Farm Bill ends at harvest, right? So once those hemp plants are deemed hemp plants, right, by the test that's done before they're harvested, where they test for the level of THC and THCA. Once those hemp plants are deemed hemp plants and they're harvested and sent off to processors to turn it into CBD isolate, the CBD isolate is going to go wherever it's going to go. How is the Farm Bill, which regulates the plant growing, going to affect what happens to the CBD, right? Take a little bit of CBD, add a little bit of bentonite clay, heat it up and distill, and you have delta-8 THC. So how are they going to keep that from happening? I don't see how it happens. I think this is where the FDA certainly needs to step in and start regulating things. And you can tell that even in the Farm Bill, the intellectual furnaces burning hard down in Washington, D.C. did not even contemplate CBD products making it to the market because, as Jean will know, CBD products, because CBD is the active ingredient of FDA-approved drugs, the FD&C Act prohibits their use in food, feed, or cosmetics. So food would be gummies, tinctures, no, off the book. Feed would be animal treats, doggy treats, off the book. Cosmetics would be topicals. So CBD and those types of form factors are all illegal, federally illegal. So I don't know. I think, again, they believe that the industrial hemp classification is going to be just for, fiber and seeds. Well, good luck. I think trying to parse out a CBD-enriched variety as extractable hemp is a futile exercise. And that's what I have to say. This is Dr. Mark from the Shirey Science Hall here at St. Michael's College in Colchester, Vermont. What do you guys have to say about the Miller Amendment, which is basically going to try to snuff out 90 to 95% of what we think is a better than $50 billion market?
I think the Miller Amendment, Dr. Scialdone, I think the Miller Amendment ultimately will not make it in the Senate's version at all, because we just had comments that we had on the show yesterday from Senator Ron Wyden, who said he's not interested in backtracking any of the progress that has been made so far, and he would view this as a backtrack. And so ultimately, I'm not too worried about this amendment, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Yeah, it may have passed through with this committee, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be in the final bill, and it definitely isn't going to be in the Senate's version of the bill, because Ron Wyden is one of the steers on that ship. And so therefore, when it ultimately gets to the president's desk, I'm willing to bet that the Senate will have made sure that that was ripped out in reconciliation.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jason, that the people pushing for this are the U.S. Cannabis Council,
that's
right?
Because
Which is basically
that's because the U.S. Cannabis Council, they don't understand how these are the same people that are against home grow and all of this other type of stuff. Right. Okay, they're simply monopolistic players trying to control the plant and think that they can control the plant and that they can control you at the same time, because of the fact of that you would in essence have to buy cannabis from them. Ultimately, that's what they ultimately want, is that you can only access cannabis from them, and they are the only people you can ever access cannabis through.
So if hemp is legal and making CBD is still legal, how do they possibly regulate what happens to CBD? Again, you can heat up CBD and convert it into THC.
I agree with you. And at the same time too, if flower is deemed as THCA flower by weight at harvest, and then who knows what form it takes after that. But they're not going to stop anything that's going on with this.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you made those points, Jason, because obviously we're really concerned about this amendment. My fiance is a hemp farmer, and he not only grows hemp, but he sells a lot of finished products, including dog treats that are infused with full spectrum CBD. So he's anxious in his body right now about this amendment. And I sort of made the same point to him, Jason, that you made. It's like, just because this one committee got it through does not mean that it's going to be in the final bill. That if the final bill even gets passed, much to Jonathan Miller's point in the story. But yeah, to the U.S. Cannabis Council, I'm just like, okay, I understand your position. You don't like these folks undercutting your business, but I am wearing my corporate mids shirt today in their honor.
Love that. Corporate
that's all I want us to buy.
That is about, you're 100% right on that, Rachelle. Dr. T, you have any thoughts on this? Dr. T, you with us?
You're muted.
You're muted, Dr. T. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Can they stop what happens to us after what happens to the plant after it's harvested?
No, because the Farm Bill stops at harvest. They would have a better chance of introducing some type of amendment that dictated control or custody of the plant after harvest than they would, I think, trying to get this amendment all the way through the finish line.
Yeah, I think conversion leads to problems unless you're really isolating Delta 8. There's so many other things that get produced with conversion. I think that's unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
But taking the plant, a type 3 plant, which is really what the definition should be, not this 0.3%, that's just doesn't make scientific sense. So taking a type 3 plant and letting it be legal would be a great step.
Yeah.
Not what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Stone, is this going to stop you from buying any Delta 8 products?
Oh, Jason Beck, you and your fascination with Delta 8. Yeah, I think it's I agree with all the points here. This Keystone Cop fumbling government of ours, if they had handled cannabis properly from the beginning, Delta 8 wouldn't exist. And it's all stupid.
It's all stupid.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I'd also like to say that those products aren't always marketed to kids. Owners actually have quite a sense of whimsy and wonder, and we like cartoons and colors.
We like colors.
Some of that stuff we just also happen to like.
Yes. All right, we're going to take a trip on the trippy side because our last two stories of the day are all about tripping balls, you guys. That's right. Coming up first, it is Miss Rachelle Gordon. She's the editor-at-large at Green State Magazine, and she likes to sell hemp dog treats, apparently, on top of her numerous Lego collection. That's right. It is none other than Miss Rachelle Gordon.
Yes, we do not talk enough about the CBD dog treat business. BadApplePets.com. Shout out to my fiance Kurt for helping the animals. Yeah, we'll drop that link.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Bad Apple Pets. Shout out to the Doggy Dreams and all the folks who are giving their dogs and their horses. We have equine treats too. So anyways, my story today comes from Kara Wheatstock, our senior content producer over at Green State. And it's going to beg the question, if certain people have better psychedelic trips than others. And what kind of people? Well, let's find out. Psychedelics have grown into a mainstream topic, with everyone from college students to parents in the pickup line chatting about the latest news. Psilocybin just made headlines in a study regarding chronic pain, and Veterans Affairs has its sights set on MDMA for treating PTSD in veterans. They've also proven valuable in helping people move through hard decisions or creative blocks. And while the ball is rolling for psychedelic destigmatization and research continues supporting the growing ways the compounds may help society, one study sought to understand whether people with a lifetime of classical psychedelic use, LCPU, suffered psychological distress, and the results were intriguing. Apparently, being single has a secret benefit. So before the breakdown, it's important to note that there were some limitations to this study. For example, analysts compared household size with mental health status without questioning relationships and experiences in the home. Also, there was no information about how people consumed classic psychedelics or the set and setting, and that wasn't all. The study details all limitations, citing a need for more information across the board. Limitations aside, this study shows an interesting trend. It turns out that one demographic of people who consume psychedelics may be the happiest, single people, that is. So, tripping while modestly uncoupled, not sure what that means, may be the move, according to science. Analysts recently broke apart data from the National Survey of Drug Use and Health collected between 2008 and 2019. The survey gauged attitudes in all phases and DC to understand how people are doing with substance abuse and mental health issues. Psychedelic consumption and personal information were part of the questioning, as for the average home size and marital status. Research honed in on mental health of people who have consumed psychedelics in their lifetime, understand the impact tripping has In the survey,
Rachelle, your internet is crashing on you right now. You're getting us all R2D2 vibes. That's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate.
But you can head over to our website at www.high9news.com to finish reading this article, if you would like. But this is super interesting because did I hear you correctly? You said that single people are happier than people that are in relationships when they're doing psychedelics.
Am I back? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. This hotel
No
sucks.
worries.
So basically, I don't know how far I got, if you can hear me now, but the general concept is that people who were single had better psychedelic trips. I haven't really, I've tripped with a significant other many years ago. It was fun. It was intimate, but I guess for me now, I almost feel like it would be a lot of pressure to have a psychedelic experience, even with my fiance. Like, I don't know, it feels kind of strange. And I know he really wants that, but I'm curious what you guys think. If you've ever tripped with a significant other, if you've had more fun on your own. I feel like I'm more of a solo tripper in general, so maybe that's just me.
Interesting. I find that
you really have to when in a relationship, you really have to allow each other your freedom, and even especially when doing psychedelics together. My wife and I went through, kind of an arc of that towards the beginning of our relationship, where a lot of times I just bail off because, and we were both experienced at doing psychedelics, but she would want to make sure she was around or be concerned for me or et cetera, or even be worried that I disappeared. And it took us a few years to just be like, yo, when we're together. The moment we separate and go on our ways, it's all good. Nobody's doing so from any kind of this point. And if you can get to that point where everybody allows each other their personal freedom, and then you're just flowing, then it's amazing. Yeah, if you're high and you got to just deal with what is this other person going to do or think if I do whatever, it's a bummer. What you need to really be, anytime you're doing psychedelics, you need to be in a space where any of the humans around you are radically supportive, most part of what you want to do, provided it's not self-harmful.
Here's the real question: How do they rate this? How do they score your experience? How does this all get done? Because I think this is a lot of hype.
Well, there are some.
I mean, honestly, I feel like.
Go ahead, Dr. T. What were you saying, Dr. T?
I was going to say there are some scales that are used to measure things like altered states of consciousness and Brunel mood scale. That's what we use when we try to get people to have a psychedelic experience with cannabis.
How does that work? Can you explain how that works, or how that would be measured? Is it how many times you see pink rainbows or something?
It's basically a survey that you take. There are these word associations. And
Got it.
Different words.
Got it. Okay. All right. I can see that. So they have all of these different words or whatnot, and you circle all the words that you relate with your experience.
Correct.
If you think Trump did a good job, then you're definitely tripping balls. I think that's a 9.
Well, we all know that he did a good job, so
Jason only does the
balls.
best LSD.
If I'm tripping balls, I'm tripping balls. But nonetheless, speaking of tripping balls, are you ready, Mr. Stone Slade? Yes, please. Yes, yeah.
All right. Bringing this ship home is a true cannabis wizard dedicated to continuing the legacy of the Merry Pranksters and the Brotherhood of Eternal Love. Alongside a Hogwarts PhD in tripping balls, this co-host of What's Good, the Cannabis Flower and Hash Review Show, and host of the Radio Free Earth podcast, boasts over 33 years of experience in sales, genetics, and cultivation. The immortal Transylvanian count himself, Mathieu St.
Transylvanian Stone.
I know. I
Transylvanian.
fucked up. Sorry.
It's all right.
Into the show.
You, Brother Stone, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, and happy Friday. Remember, is the week mean something? I've got a great article today. Psilocybin use initiates hyperconnectivity in the brain linked to ego-modifying effects. Study shows that the use of psilocybin, compound found in the widely known magic mushrooms, initiates a pattern of hyperconnectivity in the brain linked to ego-modifying effects and feelings of oceanic boundlessness. Findings appearing in Biological Psychiatry published by Elsevier, help explain the so-called mystical experiences people report during the use of psychedelics are pertinent to the psychotherapeutic applications of psychedelic drugs to treat certain disorders such as depression. They're also just kind of interesting in general for people who don't need a therapist. The concept of oceanic boundlessness refers to a sense of unity, blissfulness, insightfulness, and spiritual experience often associated with psychedelic sessions. One of the first brain imaging studies in psychedelic research, investigators found a specific association between the experiential psychedelic state and whole brain dynamic connectivity. Our previous research had shown increases in static global brain connectivity. This is the first that shows this state of hyperconnectivity is dynamic, which means changing and evolving over time. It coincides with a feeling, again, of boundlessness. This is a hallmark dimension of really good psychedelic trips. Lead investigator Johannes G. Ramaker's PhD, Department of Neuropsychology and Psychopharmacology, Faculty of Psychology and Neuroscience at Maastricht University, boy, he's got a title, as psilocybin has been one of the most studied psychedelics, possibly due to its potential contribution in treating different disorders, such as obsessive-compulsive disorder, death-related anxiety, depression, treatment-resistant depression, major depressive disorder, terminal cancer-associated anxiety, moralization, smoking, alcohol, and tobacco addiction. What was not fully understood is what brain activity associated with these profound experiences. Psilocybin generates profound alterations both at the brain and the experiential level. The brain's tendency to enter a hyper-connected, hyper-arousal pattern under this chemical represents the potential to entertain variant mental perspectives. Findings of the new study illuminate the intricate interplay between brain dynamics, subjective experience, providing insights into the neurophysiology and neuroexperiential qualities of psychedelic state. Taken together, average and dynamic connectivity analysis suggests that psilocybin alters brain function such that the overall neurobiological pattern becomes functionally more connected, more fluid, and less modular or compartmentalized. So what they're saying here, you guys, is that a lot of what is happening in the psychedelic experiences, particularly with magic mushrooms, is your brain is becoming more connected, and the increase in connectivity allows you to de-pattern and kind of get out of some grooves that you have made, because what you actually end up doing is making grooves like in a record with chemical pathways. It's like ants lay down chemical pheromones and follow those trails. So one of the things these psychedelics is doing is it's allowing you to de-pattern, to see larger holistic relationships. I think this is just great science and great story. It is kind of shining a light into what's going on in these states and how they're helping people, and I'm really interested in what you all have to St. Germain on a Friday for the High at 9 News. Take it away, guys.
Dr. T, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, I love this study, and it's exactly what we're doing. We're just looking at cannabis rather than psilocybin. But those words of oceanic boundlessness are exactly the words that we're asking people out their experience and be able to measure it and scale.
Interesting. This is super, super, super interesting. I mean, and I'm just envisioning, your brain, your neuro pathways, and like you said, Matthew, like how ants, they'll start going and do you remember like those little toys in the 80s, the ants farms, and you could see them like build all the little trails and whatnot, of how they're going to move through the whole little thing. And so I'm just imagining all these different neural pathways and them opening, and all of a sudden you learning to do new things, be able to cope with things better or whatnot. This is super, super powerful. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of neurologists have no clue about this.
It's just being discovered. One of the things that Paul Stamets has been pointing to, slightly different, but just showing more, neural activity and neural upregulation, is there's a tapping test. And what they did is they did a test where you have to tap your fingers, and they see how many times you can do it in a certain amount of time. And they did this with senior citizens. And after giving them the Stamets stack, which is a microdose of cubensis mushrooms, some lion's mane mushroom mycelium, and some niacin, vitamin B3, they were able to 1.5 to almost double the time tapping. And what this was showing was that there was a faster signal response in their brains. So there's a vast array of different things that we're seeing, these different accelerations and hyperconnective traits of these psychedelics that are helping humans, for sure. I don't know, who here has ever taken a good dose and then tried to do something that maybe they already have practiced a little bit. And I find that's where you really actually get a lot of acceleration, is not doing even something brand new. Oftentimes, like if you play music, I was playing music on New Year's a year ago or so, and high, and decided to try to play drums, which I don't normally do. I play bass and sing, and you can do both. And a lot of times what these psychedelics will do is they'll kind of just open up states, and they'll show us little glimpses of a greater potential that we have and who we can be. Then as we come down, then we need to work in our daily life to execute our disciplines and hone those skill sets to get to that moment that we saw. Or something, man.
Fascinating.
Do a lot of drugs.
Fascinating story.
And you do that good. I don't know if I can do it as good as you.
What's that, Dr. T?
He's a great tapper.
Oh, man. Are they doing just like this? Is it with both hands, just one hand, or?
It's just index finger, thumb, and I think it's either 30 seconds or 90 seconds.
And they're counting how many times you can do it within that time period.
Yes, sir.
We working.
Interesting.
And so the Stamets stack, again, it's a 1/10 of a gram of psilocybin, 1/10 of a gram of lion's mane mycelium, and a couple hundred, I think 400 milligrams of niacin. The niacin highlights all of your blood vessels and your capillaries, pushing in the active ingredients in the mushrooms, the inner recesses of your brain, of your brain. Tapping.
Fascinating.
All tap. Great.
And on that, you guys, we are gonna tap on out of here. You guys, we are gonna have to. Where? There you go. There you go. There you
Let's
go.
get tapping.
Yes, let's get tapping. Thank you all for getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big thank yous to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to all of our sponsors, Catalyst, Zen Brands, Stretch and Smoke, and many more. Thank you to all of our correspondents for absolutely being truly amazing, and thank you to you for giving us a reason to do this every day. Tuning in, watching us, checking it out. And thank you, Cloud Media Partners. We got Adam in the building today. Oh, yes. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.